UFO, the U in UFO, of course, simply means unidentified. It does not necessarily mean visitors from outer space. But it must be unidentified not just to the person who is puzzled by it, but it must remain unidentified after considerable study. Then and only then is it a UFO.
In this film, we'll discuss many facets of the UFO phenomenon, from the U.S. government's study of the subject, some of the more bizarre aspects of the phenomenon, and some areas of the subject that might have been overlooked.
What?
In 1954, then U.S. President Dwight D. Eisenhower traveled to Palm Springs. On one Saturday during this visit, President Eisenhower went missing for several hours and even missed a dinner held in his honor that evening. The official story was that the president visited a dentist to fix a cracked tooth. Eisenhower was not seen until the following morning. A rumor surfaced concerning the president's mysterious disappearance. The rumor is that the president was taken to nearby Edwards Air Force Base, where he supposedly met with an alien being. And at some point in time, an agreement was made between the U.S. and the extraterrestrials. The aliens agreed to provide the U.S. with advanced technology. In exchange, the aliens would be allowed to abduct U.S. citizens for their purposes, and would provide the U.S. government with a list of abductees.
What?
On December 16, 1953, near Lindero, California, Kelly Johnson and his wife had just returned home. Mr. Johnson was looking out a large window in his living room when something caught his eye. A large dark object appeared to be hovering in the sky. At first, he thought it was a lenticular cloud. Johnson asked his wife to get his binoculars, then went outside to view the object, all the while keeping it in sight. Focusing the binoculars, he could see what looked like a large structured object which seemed to be moving slowly against the wind. Johnson watched the object until it increased its speed and disappeared in the distance towards the coast. This would have been an interesting sighting in itself, but the observation was more than credible due to the fact that Kelly Johnson wasn't an untrained observer. In fact, Johnson was the director of Lockheed Martin's Skunk Works, which is the top secret division of Lockheed Martin, and develops advanced military fighter aircraft and U.S. spy planes for the CIA. Coincidentally, at approximately the same time as Johnson's sighting, Lockheed Martin test pilots were testing the systems of the U.S. Navy's WV-2 Warning Star aircraft over the Pacific. The V-2 had a large blister on the underside of the fuselage, which housed radar antennas, and a dorsal fin on the top of the fuselage, housing height-finding equipment. As the pilots conducted their tests, one crew member noticed a strange object in the sky and pointed it out to the other crew members. The pilot of the WV-2 turned towards the object and attempted to gain on it. The UFO maintained its distance, then shot off at high speed and disappeared. The following day, Johnson had a meeting with the WV-2 test team. During the meeting, Johnson told the team that he had observed a strange object in the sky the evening before. Then the pilots reported to Johnson that they had seen the same object. Johnson had all the men write a report of what they had observed. Then Johnson combined all of these reports, along with his own, into an official report, which included drawings of what Johnson had observed. Some have speculated that the SR-71 Blackbird's shape was inspired by the shape of Johnson's drawings of the UFO he had seen that day. And more recently, the B-2 bomber's structure is nearly identical to Johnson's drawings. If we're to believe the testimony of this next witness, somewhere in the U.S. government archives lies photographic evidence that UFOs are real. Prior to Gordon Cooper becoming an astronaut, he was an officer in the U.S. Air Force stationed at Edwards Air Force Base.
I had a film crew working for me on a project I was doing to put a precision landing system on the edge of the dry lake bed. And they were filming various stages of the installation. And a small saucer apparently flew overhead and put down some landing gear and landed out on the dry lake bed, only about 50 yards out. And these were old pro cameramen who were used to flying in all kinds of vehicles to take all kinds of pictures. And they picked up their cameras and started over toward it to get some close-ups. And with that, it lifted up, put the gear back in, and at a very high rate of speed disappeared. So they came in to tell me what happened. I told them to get over to the lab and develop the film immediately. And I would go and look in the book, regulation book, and see what you're supposed to do, who you have to call to report these kind of incidents, which I did. Sure. By the time they got back with the film, there was a higher and higher and higher ranked man preceding the last one, assuring me that I had to get those negatives into a pouch. And that they'd made arrangements already to get our commanding general's airplane reserved and take the films to Washington.
What's happening?
Where are you taking me?
According to alien abduction researchers such as Bud Hopkins, it is believed that female abductees experience multiple abductions during their life. Some female abductees claim their eggs were harvested by these alien beings. It's thought that some process similar to in vitro fertilization is performed. Then the women are abducted again and implanted with the fertilized eggs. Sometime later, they are abducted again and the developed fetus is removed. It's presumed that these fetuses are somehow brought to full gestation by some means, and the entire process results in an alien-human hybrid. At a later date, when the females are abducted, they are shown either hybrid babies or hybrid children, and are somehow asked to show these hybrids affection. In the case of male abductees, they too are subjected to medical examinations and procedures, including human reproductive fluid being taken from them. Perhaps a process similar to in vitro fertilization is also used, except with the use of a female extraterrestrial's egg. We can only speculate that either a female extraterrestrial carries the baby to term, or that it's done by some other scientific means. As with female abductees, male abductees have also been shown hybrid children. It's interesting to note that the abduction experience is terrifying for some abductees. For others, they feel like they were in a trance or dreaming. And others have total recall and had a pleasant experience. Perhaps this is due to the individual abductee's belief system. One of the more gruesome and mysterious connections to the UFO phenomenon is that of cattle mutilations.
Cattle found dead and the manner of their deaths are a real mystery.
3 different cows on 3 different days found mutilated.
Henry County rancher Lynn Mitchell is perplexed. She found one of her 1,500-pound cows dead in the pasture on July 19th. Its tongue sliced out, its heart exposed.
It wasn't detached, it was just hanging out there. I looked at first to see her tongue was gone, then immediately noticed the udder had completely been removed.
Lynn says this cow's reproductive organs were gone too. Making the death more mysterious, this char mark, still visible today, surrounded the cow.
Lynn also says the vet and the deputies could never find bullet wounds or any other ways the cows could have been taken down.
Well, tonight authorities north of Houston are investigating the mysterious death of 6 cattle found with their tongues removed but no blood spilled.
Authorities in at least 3 counties receiving reports of cattle lying on their sides mutilated. Madison County Sheriff's deputies discovering a 6-year-old longhorn sliced with a clean cut, hide from one side of the cow's mouth missing, the tongue also removed without any blood spilling.
In some cases, cows have been found with a white powdery material on them that glows under a black light. Multiple investigations have failed to reveal if these mutilators are cultists, if it's a military experiment, or the work of alien beings. A vast number of alien beings has been described by UFO witnesses and purported abductees. Here are just a few. The Greys, multiple varieties of which have been described. The insectoids. The tall whites. And the reptilians, to name a few. Just as life on Earth comes in a vast variety, we can speculate that life throughout the universe is just as diverse, and based on various factors, life may have evolved differently than here on Earth. Just as our astronauts need protective suits and oxygen tanks in space, some extraterrestrials may need similar means to survive in our atmosphere. Area 51 is known as a place of great mystery. The Groom Lake facility in Area 51 is located in the Nellis Air Force Range in Nevada, close to the Nevada test site where the U.S. developed and tested nuclear weapons. Although there is no fence surrounding the entire base, make no mistake, this is a secure facility with warning signs everywhere. The facility is protected by armed guards, helicopters and other aircraft, and cameras and sensors of a wide variety. One of the most secret bases in the world, Area 51 is home to the world's largest runway and supposedly houses a vast underground complex. Workers at Area 51 are flown in by Janet Airlines, which is located in a secure area of the Las Vegas airport, or they are bussed in on white buses with the windows blacked out. Due to Area 51's secrecy and tight security, many rumors have surfaced over the years as to what is actually going on at Area 51, such as reverse engineering of crashed UFOs, that it's a place that dead alien pilots are stored, that captured live aliens are working with the U.S. military there, and that crashed UFOs are test flown there. In 1989, government scientist Bob Lazar claimed he worked at Area 51's Groom Lake facility, where he saw numerous crashed UFOs of various sizes and designs. He also claimed that he and one other scientist worked on trying to figure out how the propulsion system of one of these aircraft operated. He stated that the craft's interior seemed too small for an adult pilot and that there was a small reactor which was connected to 3 gravity amplifiers, which in turn were connected on lower level to 3 gravity emitters. Lazar also described a test flight of a UFO where a blue corona was seen near the bottom of the craft, and as the corona intensified, the UFO lifted up off the ground. The UFO then flew left and right several times before it landed. Lazar took several polygraphs over the years. Here are the details of one such test.
Terry Tabernetti doesn't use his gleaming polygraph machine anymore. During his many years working in corporate security at major casino properties on the Las Vegas Strip, he tested thousands of employees. Before that, he worked as a police officer in Southern California. He had no idea he and his lie detector might be drawn into one of the most controversial UFO cases of all time, the claims made by former government scientist Bob Lazar.
Yeah, I think so.
In November 1989, Lazar's name and face were revealed to the public for the first time in a KLAS TV news series. Lazar's claims about working on flying saucers at a hidden facility near Area 51 set off a UFO stampede that continues to this day.
The job I had, the involvement with the government cover-up, that sort of thing, the story isn't altered in any way.
Lazar agreed to a polygraph test. The first one he did was inconclusive. The examiner thought Lazar was so nervous that it was difficult to get an accurate read on him. Tabernetti was recommended. He questioned Lazar about the central allegations that he had seen a flying disc at a base called S4, that the craft was powered by an antimatter reactor and generated its own gravity. To Tabernetti's surprise, Lazar passed.
My personal thoughts, the pre-test interview of 3.5 hours, the test itself, the post-test interview showed absolutely nothing to detour my thought that Bob Lazar was truthful.
He described a strange hand scan device he had to use to gain access to his work area. People have disputed this claim, but photos of a similar device have recently surfaced. Lazar also stated that the fuel for the UFO was element 115, which didn't exist at the time. However, in 2004, element 115 on Pentium was discovered. It has been rumored for decades that the U.S. military has been working with alien beings, although no one has presented to the public or the scientific community any undeniable proof. The rumor mill concerning the subject continues to churn. If these rumors are true, it's possible that there may be a personnel exchange program between the extraterrestrials and the U.S. military. One such rumor is that extraterrestrials have helped the U.S. military develop advanced weaponry, otherworldly advancements in aviation, as well as other scientific advancements. Another rumor is that the U.S. military has been given alien spacecraft and that in some cases been taught by aliens to pilot these crafts. Now we'll take a look at a UFO case where several versions have been reported. In 1953, near Kingman, Arizona, UFO purportedly crashed in the desert. When the U.S. Army arrived at the crash site, a live extraterrestrial was discovered and taken willingly to an underground U.S. base, where the alien helped U.S. scientists develop UFO crafts. It's been speculated that the underground base in question was Area 51. On the TV show In Search Of, a military witness tells a different version of the story. He claims that he and others were transported by buses with the windows blacked out to an unknown location, and that it took several hours to reach their destination. He states a UFO crashed somewhere near Kingman, Arizona, and that the UFO looked to be completely intact, and his job was to calculate the weight of the UFO. He also reported that another soldier at the site told him there was a tent at the crash site, and that this soldier walked up to the tent and looked inside. The soldier was surprised to see 2 non-human bodies lying in the tent. If this is true, soldiers must have discovered the bodies earlier. Undoubtedly, if true, the UFO and bodies have been taken somewhere for analysis. In another version of the story, a UFO crashed near Kingman, Arizona. And during the UFO crash recovery effort, a live alien being was discovered among the wreckage and was captured. The wreckage was collected and loaded onto trucks along with the captured alien and were taken to an unknown location. The alien prisoner was in captivity for several years before he decided to communicate, and eventually assisted U.S. scientists to develop UFO technology. One final version of the story is that aliens landed in Kingman, Arizona, and gave their craft to the U.S. military, presumably due to a prior agreement with the U.S. government. There were 4 alien beings aboard the UFO who were taken to Los Alamos National Laboratory as guests of the U.S. government. It's been stated that only one of these beings spoke. Purportedly, this alien provided advanced technological information to the U.S. government scientists. Several witnesses have come forward stating that they've worked with an alien being named J-Rod.
We had a long period of introduction into meetings, say an ABE in Mayoga. And I called him J-Rod, of course that's what they called him, but that wasn't his, I don't know if that was his real name or not, but that's the name that the linguist gave him.
How much individual contact did you have with him?
He used to come in with Teller and some of the other guys occasionally on questions that maybe we'd have, You got to understand that everything was, specific to the group. If it wasn't specific to the group, you couldn't talk about it. So,
Need to know.
Need to know. And he would talk, but he'd sound just like, if you spoke, he'd sound like you. He's like one of the, a parrot, but he'd try and answer your question, A lot of times you'd have a hard time understanding, because if you didn't put it on paper and explain yourself, half the time he couldn't give you a good answer.
When you said there was a long build-up to actually meeting this person, what was the preparation like before you actually had a chance to have personal contact?
First of all, I went through all of the different nationalities in the world, right? Just, whatever,
Human nationalities.
Yeah, human nationalities, Then they got into going into other forms of life, even down to, animals and that type of thing. And the fact that, this J-Rod his skin was pinkish, but a little bit rough, and that kind of stuff. Not horrible looking, or to me, he didn't look horrible looking.
Do you know what kind of scientific advice he would give the crew that was building or back engineering these?
Basically, it was only engineering advice or science advice. With each design, there's a requirement for calculations, and we have to prove by calculations, that this thing's going to operate. No different than anything else we do. And sometimes you get into a spot where you try and even if you use the formulas to come up with this thing that they provide you, it wouldn't work. And that's where he'd come in, tell him to look at this and see what we did wrong. So you really never knew how many we had. The last 40 years or so, man, not counting the simulators, I'm talking about actual craft, there's probably maybe 2 or 3 dozen various different sizes.
That we built, or that we have?
That we built. I don't know much about the ones that, that they brought here. I know about that one out of Kingman, but that's about it.
I actually came into direct contact with him at the end of 1993, start of 94. During the entirety of my experience around him, he appeared the best that I can describe as off-shifted. Almost like, he was physical. I felt him through the glove. There was matter there with me, but almost like he was a ghost with a body. He didn't belong. He did not belong where he was. Yet, when he would communicate, when he would do the entrainment, they thump you. It's almost acoustically. They thump you. And until they finally come into contact with the brain level waves where they can begin communicating. And it comes in waves. It's almost like flicks of a dolphin. It comes in waves. And then you feel yourself pulled in as the entrainment is occurring. The perception is being pulled into his eyes. Very unwieldy feeling. But then they entrain, bringing you down to relaxed, almost to a theta state, like an 8 hertz type theta state, where you're very almost like drowsy, and they tell you, they're not going to hurt you. He did that. He actually said he would not harm me. When he stepped forward on me, when we were doing the old bride's dance, as we nicknamed it, where I was supposed to step forward to him, almost like taking a bride step up the aisle. And then he did the thing back to me, almost jokingly, but it was so unwieldy because he broke the protocol. It's like everything that had been established of trust at that moment, it went to hell. And I got so afraid. There was an animal response in me at that moment, a very, very human animalistic response of get me the hell out of here. And I stepped backward and fell backward onto my back. And he walked up onto me. I heard them yelling, "Fire the repress." They were going to intumesce him. They were going to hurt him so that he wouldn't hurt me. And I was trying to yell no, and I'm not even sure to this day if I really yelled no or if it was just in my mind. The stress was that bad at the moment. He literally walked up onto me and sat on my chest. He didn't knock me over. I mean, there was, I think Ron or a couple other people said, he knocked you over in the cleans. He couldn't knock me over. He was too weak to knock me over. He even if he wasn't given his size, he couldn't have knocked me over.
And how tall was he?
Just a little over 3 feet, hunched down, almost 4 feet if he was to be extended out lengthwise, if he would be lying on his back and extended out lengthwise. But the malady, the pathologies under which he was suffering caused him to have weakness, change of gait, change of stance, where most of the time he was extremely hunched over forward and he really couldn't stand up straight. When he would walk, he would wobble and kind of shuffle.
So he got on your chest, he walked onto your chest, or sat on your chest.
He was actually sitting on my abdomen area, but he was leaning forward with his hands onto my chest.
Was he down? So he was communicating at that moment that he wasn't going to hurt you?
Yes, he said, I won't hurt you, Beanie. He called me Beanie.
And you heard this in your head, I'm assuming. I
heard it in my head.
It wasn't out loud.
No, I heard it in my head, in my own introspective voice, but clearly not coming from me. Mm-hmm. You know the sound of yourself when you talk to yourself, self-talk. It's the same sound, except it's the wrong linguistics. It's the wrong wording. You can tell it's not you. And initially when that happens too, there is from my perspective, initially when it was happening, there was a very panicky feeling.
So, but your experience with the J-Rod and the other ones you've met were you afraid for your life at any time? In other words,
I was afraid for my life when he stepped forward me. Absolutely, I was. At that moment, but it was a very transient, it was an ephemeral moment.
One interesting point to note is that Burish described a medical procedure being done to J-Rod that sounds strikingly similar to immunotherapy. Dan Burish stated he took blood samples from J-Rod, and then the blood went through some process. Then the blood was re-injected back into J-Rod. Although it's merely speculation, perhaps J-Rod was afflicted with some form of cancer. In an undisclosed location in the Pacific Ocean, U.S. Navy was conducting a training exercise when suddenly a UFO is spotted from the aft deck of one of the ships and slowly approaches and circles the ship. The UFO is observed by dozens of crew members aboard the ship. Suddenly, a second and a third UFO appear in front of the ship and fly across the deck. Without warning, one of the UFOs plunges into the ocean and all three UFOs disappear from view. The submerged UFO travels some distance under the water, then surfaces and rises into the air. The UFO returns to the area where it was first spotted and now is spotted by a submarine sitting on the surface and splashes down into the ocean again, which is captured on video by sensors on board the submarine. The UFO takes off underwater and the submarine dives to chase it. A total of 3 uncorrelated targets traveling in formation are picked up on sonar. The UFOs break formation, travel in different directions, resurface, and then take off into the sky. Although the incident you just watched was fictional, many of the elements of this incident have been reported by U.S. Navy personnel over the years. Here is actual footage captured by a U.S. submarine of a UFO, now known as a UAP, hovering, then submerging into the ocean. U.S. Customs and Border Protection has captured footage of numerous incidents involving UAP activity above land and water. One such incident occurred on April 25, 2013, over Aguadilla Airport in Puerto Rico. The object at times moved at speeds approaching 120 miles per hour. A team of scientists, engineers, and former military officers spent 1,000 hours evaluating this UAP video and produced a 50-page report on the incident. Here, the UAP crosses the roadway with moving vehicles, which gives some sense of the object's size. The object flies over the water, then into the water, all the while maintaining the same speed, then resurfaces and appears to split into 2 UAPs at one point. Then both UAPs resubmerge and disappear. Dr. Roger Lear is a pioneer in the removal of what are known as supposed alien implants. These are strange objects which show up on X-rays of persons who claim to have been abducted by alien beings. Reported abductees claim to have had terrifying experiences where aliens performed sometimes painful procedures where objects were implanted into various parts of their bodies, oftentimes leaving no scar. It's thought that perhaps the extraterrestrials are implanting tracking devices the way scientists tag and track the movements of wildlife. The evidence is overwhelming that something is going on in our skies. We can only speculate as to the purpose of these strange visitations. Perhaps the extraterrestrials come to Earth to harvest natural resources, such as water, to harness natural energy, or to abduct and study humans and our habits. Until these beings make open contact, their agendas will remain unknown. Several U.S. military and intelligence whistleblowers have come forward to state that not only is the UFO phenomenon real, but that the U.S. military-industrial complex is somehow involved. U.S. Congress held hearings on UAPs on July 26, 2023 and November 13, 2024, where military and government whistleblowers gave testimony on UAPs and secret government UAP programs.
You say that the government is in possession of potentially non-human spacecraft. Based on your experience and extensive conversations with experts, do you believe our government has made contact with intelligent extraterrestrials?
Something I can't discuss in a public setting.
If you believe we have crashed craft, stated earlier, do we have the bodies of the pilots who piloted this craft?
As I've stated publicly already in my News Nation interview, biologics came with some of these recoveries. Yeah.
Were they, I guess, human or non-human biologics?
Non-human, and that was the assessment of people with direct knowledge on the program I talked to that are currently still on the program.
And was this documentary evidence, this video, photos, eyewitness? Like, how would that be determined?
The specific documentation I would have to talk to you in a SCIF about.
What agency, sub-agency, what contractors, who should be called into the next hearing about UAPs, either in a public setting or even in a private setting? And you probably can't name names, but what agencies or organizations, contractors, etc., do we need to call in to get these questions answered, whether it's about funding, what programs are happening, and what's out there?
I can give you a specific cooperative and hostile witness list of specific individuals that were in those.
And how soon can we get that list?
I'm happy to provide that to you after the hearing. Let me be clear. UAP are real. Advanced technologies not made by our government or any other government are monitoring sensitive military installations around the globe. Furthermore, the U.S. is in possession of UAP technologies, as are some of our adversaries. I believe we are in the midst of a multi-decade secretive arms race, one funded by misallocated taxpayer dollars and hidden from our elected representatives and oversight bodies.
According to Lou Elizondo, UAPs exhibit unusual flight characteristics that he calls the 5 observables. Number 1, instantaneous acceleration. Number 2, hypersonic velocities without signatures. Number 3, low observability or cloaking. Number 4, transmedium travel. Number 5, positive lift or anti-gravity capabilities. AARO, the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, is the current U.S. Department of Defense office to investigate and evaluate UFOs, now known as UAPs, or unidentified anomalous phenomena. This office was created out of a concern that these phenomena may pose a threat to U.S. military training and operations. If intelligent life does exist elsewhere in the universe, there's an aspect of the UFO/UAP phenomenon that's seldom contemplated. What is life like for extraterrestrials? Do aliens fall in love? Do alien mothers care for their babies the way human mothers do? Do alien children enjoy playing? And do they go to school and have a formal education? Do aliens have pets? Do alien families eat together? Do they use credit or some form of currency? Do alien women enjoy shopping? Do they enjoy a day at the spa? Do they make and enjoy art and music? Do they practice a religion? Do aliens have a government? And do aliens wage war with their enemies? It is inevitable that we will make contact with alien civilizations someday. The event would give us all something in common to talk about, and perhaps would unite the people of the earth. Most people say they won't believe in UFOs until one lands on the White House lawn. And when that day comes, and if the aliens are friendly, it would usher in a new era for humanity. One of advanced technology. One with enough food for the world's population. One of happiness. Of kindness.
Hello there.
Of friendship. Where disease is eradicated. Some of us may choose to live and work in space along with our new friends. To learn new skills. And explore the universe together. If one or more extraterrestrial and/or interdimensional race is visiting our planet, they may have different agendas for their presence here. And if these beings are hostile, the implications would be catastrophic. The evidence is overwhelming that something is going on in our skies. We can only speculate as to the purpose of these strange visitations. And just perhaps, alien beings have already landed and at any moment could make contact. Who these visitors are, where they come from, and why they're here is still a mystery. Until the visitors make open contact, these questions and more will continue to confound us. So keep your eyes to the skies. I'm Cy, and you can watch me and ISO on our YouTube channel, Inside the SCIF. Go there now and enjoy this video.